Welcome back to Breakfast with Bob from Triathlon Business International. My next guest, Mr. Scott Kaylin, President and CEO of Champion Systems. Scotty, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Bob. How are you? Always good to see you.
Always a pleasure. So take me back. Where'd you grow up?
Long Island boy.
Long Island.
Don't hold it against me.
No. But I know you guys are under snow right now. Sports growing up?
Oh, everything. Basketball, track, soccer, lacrosse.
Yeah.
Got on my bike very late in life. Hit the endurance sports in the second portion of the life.
So
mostly
high school,
team sports.
College, did you play team sports?
High school.
High school.
High school.
And where'd you go to college?
Didn't.
What?
Yes.
Did you go right to business?
I did.
And what was your first
School
business?
of Hard Knocks. Started working in the Garment Center at 19.
Oh.
And actually started my first company at 24.
Did you really?
Yeah.
So from 19 to 24, what did you learn in terms of the garment industry? Everything?
Everything.
Yeah.
I knew entrepreneurial spirit my entire life.
Yes.
So
Was your dad an entrepreneur?
was also in the Garment Center.
Ah, okay.
Got my first job actually for no pay. I was living at home, went in and said, when I deserve a salary,
Tell me.
and I want to learn. That lasted for about 2 weeks.
And
started
what
getting
was
paid.
that?
So in manufacturing,
Yes.
they make what they call markers. So it's a giant jigsaw puzzle representing each of the pieces of a garment.
Right.
So the first job I had was to learn how to make those markers. So without a true real game plan, it was to learn every aspect of the garment industry and become a master at none. But
Was your thought then, at one point I will start my own
Yes,
garment
100%.
business? So you were driven. It
Always.
wasn't like, hey, I just need to get a job. It's your college. This was your college.
College of Hard Knocks.
Exactly.
It was very anti-authoritative as a youth.
Yes.
Not very much patience. Very
Yes.
into instant gratification. So it was more. I didn't like limitations.
Right.
And that's I wanted sky's the limit and
You make your own destiny, right?
Exactly.
Create your own thing.
Exactly.
So after you're there a couple weeks and then you start getting paid.
Correct.
How long did you stay?
Year.
Okay. And then stepped up?
Stepped up. Moved into I guess what I was probably born and bred for, which is sales.
Yes. With one of the garment
Yeah.
companies? Okay.
Yeah. So I had 2 selling jobs until I was probably 22.
Okay.
And then met a gentleman who kind of gave me the ability to make all the mistakes with someone else's money.
Someone who believed in you before you believed in you.
Correct.
Yeah.
And gave me the opportunity to really focus on every aspect of business at a very young age.
And was this garment industry as well?
It was garment industry as well. Unfortunately or unfortunately, he probably taught me every way not to do business. But that's a priceless thing to learn at
Sure.
a young age. And then slowly started to hone my business abilities.
And when did you go off and create your own?
At 24.
You're 24 years old. What was that first
24.
business you created?
Actually, very similar to an existing company I still own. Basically, I had a lot of contacts in sales, but I had no money.
Right.
And the money part comes from production.
Sure.
So I had found a gentleman who owned a factory. At that time, most of the things were made in New York.
Sure.
And spoke with him and convinced him to basically be my bank and manufacturer. And said, I'll go out and I'll sell. And you finance it, and I get a piece of it.
And was this fashion? Was this?
I was mostly, my background was mostly in women's apparel.
Okay.
Dresses and sportswear.
Nice.
And that started working out very well. And
Okay.
actually, my father, who had sold his business years ago, actually came and started to work for me. little role
Is there
reversal.
anything better than that?
Little role reversal.
Dad? Hey, Dad, I could use a cup of coffee here.
And actually, the road we're taking right now is very interesting because that's how I initially met one of my current partners in Champion System, who I have known since 1990.
Really?
Yeah. I had gotten a phone call. I haven't shared this story, actually. This is really interesting. So years ago,
Yes.
The women's Lycra shorts, forgetting about cycling,
Right.
they called them biker shorts.
Right.
So bike shorts. So I had, there was a catalog called Allen & Allen, and somehow they got in touch with us, and they wanted 50 like leggings and 50 pair of biker shorts. And the guy that I was working with that was financing the business said, it's a waste of time, waste of money. Why would I do that? It's
too small a quantity. Yeah.
So Lewis Shee, who's probably my best friend in the world and one of my current partners, at that time owned a business in San Francisco that had a factory, and they made those all day long.
Yeah.
So I called Lewis up, and I said, can you make this for me? He said, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So at that point, I had made some money, so I could at least finance this small little order myself. 6 months later, that small order turned into about 50% of the production for this catalog. So at that point, Lewis and I, he was one of 12 partners in this company.
Oh my God!
So he was leaving that business. The two of us really had nothing.
Right.
But we realized we had a business model. So he opened up a one-room office in San Francisco. I opened at a one-room office in New York. I broke away from the gentleman that was financing the business. We had $5,000 between us, and we started a company called Ranaday. And that
making bike short.
Well, we were making everything. Dresses.
Yes.
So what turned the corner for us? We had a business going for about a year that was doing about $1 million worth of sales.
Yeah.
And we walked into Learners, which is
Sure.
a huge retailer that was owned by the Limited, one day, and we walked out of that with a $1.4 million order. So we were really,
you are a salesman.
we were really excited for about 20 minutes, and then we had to figure out how we're going to make it. And that's basically how it all started.
Wow. And so when did Champion Systems come to be?
We are actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary.
I thought it was
this
10,
year.
yeah. And now, how much of Champion System came out of your love of cycling?
I don't know how much time we have, but I'll share the story with you if you want.
Yeah.
So I got into cycling, I guess, it's probably close to 18 years ago now. So I was in my 30s.
Sure.
And type A personality. At that, right prior to getting into cycling, I was very overweight, weighed 300 pounds.
No way.
Smoked a pack of Marlboro Reds a day.
You better get on your bike, and you better have a reinforced seat.
What happened was I was in Hong Kong, and Lewis took me to a spin class.
Yeah.
And it was similar to like a cartoon, because I finished the spin class, and I saw the birds tweeting around my head.
Yeah.
I almost died.
Yeah.
And I got out of that class, and I said, the next time I come back here, I said, I'm going to kick that teacher's butt. And he looked at me and he's like, hey. And I went back to New York, and I joined the gym, and I started spinning every day, and I quit smoking, and I found out about the Pilates AIDS ride, which was 385 miles, 4 days from Bear Mountain to Boston. Yeah. And I bought a bike, and I started training. And I fell in love. So now I'm in the local bike shop 2 to 3 times a week.
Yes.
And I want to know who I'm giving my money to.
Sure.
So I'm like, who's the owner? And I meet the owner, and this gentleman by the name of Maury, and we become friends. And at that point, my other business had grown substantially, and we were basically a sourcing company that sourced production. So he owned a very successful bike shop called Bicycle Planet, top 100 bike shop. And he said, well, you know what? Maybe through your connections, I could start sourcing some of my own products. So I called up Lewis, and we took a trip to China. We went to bike factories, bell factories, computer factories, tire factories, and came back even more confused than when we left. The interesting thing about Maury's business was he had a very large clothing area. He had a 12,000 square foot store, and I think about 3,500 square feet was clothing.
That's a lot for a bike shop.
Correct. So we all knew clothing, and at the exact same period, Lewis, who had a bike club in Hong Kong, was trying to source getting custom apparel done. And before we got into the industry, it was an arduous task. I mean, you needed a PhD to figure out just what something cost, let alone when it was going to get delivered, what the minimums were, what the zipper length was. So we all figured, we love cycling. This is an interesting opportunity. There's a void. So we said, okay, you know what? Let's try to do this. And Maury said, because he had the industry knowledge,
Yes.
the clothing knowledge, he said, there's a big void, but if we're going to do it, we have to do it the right way. We have to build the business around what the consumer needs, not what we're capable of.
Yeah.
So we all had our companies going, and Maury's sending over samples, and Lewis is making samples, and we're going back and forth for about 8 months. Now, it's important to understand that Lewis and I we've done every business deal together in the 15 years without even speaking to each other. And he called me up one night, and he goes, I'm tired of this. He goes, I want to do this business. I said, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I ordered a printing machine. I go, a printing machine? I go, how much is a printing machine? He goes, $75,000. $75,000? I go, when's it coming? He goes, 10 days. He goes, so you and Maury better open up a company in the U.S. I'm opening a company in China, or I'm doing it without you. So I called Maury up that night, and the next day we went to the attorney, and Champion System was born.
That was it?
That was it.
Wow.
That was it.
Pretty scary.
Pretty scary. That was 10 years ago. We had nothing. We didn't know what we were doing.
I mean, and did you think we are making cycling gear?
That was it. We were going to do custom cycling apparel. We looked at, and this is what's very interesting, and I think one of the reasons we were successful at the beginning.
Yeah.
We knew how to make actual garments, not endurance apparel.
Right.
So our first cycling jersey was constructed in a way that the industry had never seen before. The way that we sewed it, the way, we were the very first ones to do a concealed zipper on a cycling jersey.
Wow.
Well, why do you want to do that? Because it only made sense to us, because at the end of the day, what does Champion System do? It allows people to brand themselves.
Sure.
So even back then, that was the message. Now, if you have a big
zipper,
if you have a big white zipper going right in the middle of the, how are you branding yourself? It's destroying the branding. So use a concealed zipper. It's something we used in all of our garments for years. So little things like that. So it's been fun. When we started, we were getting our orders on fax machines that spooled out paper.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
You know, fast forward 10 years.
How big has Champion become?
Well, we have 2 of our own manufacturing facilities. We have 1,200 employees. We have offices in 22 countries. We're still, we're big in the space, but we're still a little business.
Right.
And I think one of the fun things is there are a lot of companies that do bits and pieces of what we do.
Right.
But we haven't found one that does everything that we do in one package. So we can't look over our shoulder and say, that company did it right, that company did it wrong, how do we do it better? The only history we really have is what
you're creating your own history as you go.
So, and I think the biggest change is, as much as we love cycling and we love triathlon and we love endurance sports, we sat down and realized for us to really grow, we have to diversify. And that's been a big play of what we're doing right now.
Right.
Cycling will always be in our blood and our passion, but we have multiple divisions that we're opening and creating into new space and trying to replicate what we did in cycling and triathlon. And it's funny, we've actually had some turnover of employees because of that, based on the fact that, that some people are so ingrained in the endurance world and it's what they love, and, you have to share a vision. And our vision is to be the best. Doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest, but that usually sometimes comes along with it, of a custom technical apparel company that really covers, we've recently just, we have a motorsports division, we have a rugby division. This past weekend we did a soft launch in lacrosse, but I'm so excited about it. My wife called me this past weekend, and she was actually in Asia on business, and she goes, I haven't heard you this excited in like a year.
Yeah.
And because we're at the beginning again.
Yes.
And we get to keep replicating that, and it's fun and it's exciting.
So I've watched you go from cycling to triathlon to running. Just those 3 markets, how different are they?
I think the biggest difference would probably, out of the 3, would be running.
Yeah.
Cycling and triathlon share certain commonalities, but there is a big difference, actually, a lot of times even in the athlete. 2 very elitist personalities, between A-type personalities, between a triathlete and a cyclist. Obviously, touching on some of the things that were brought up in the conference, that aspect of a team journey, which is really just kind of being introduced in triathlon. Running, very different community. Totally. Very different community. I have to say, I don't want to say a friendlier community, but I think a more approachable community.
Interesting.
A more approachable community from a business standpoint. But the funny thing is cyclists and triathletes are used to what we offer.
Right.
The run
Runners
community,
are not. They're not used to high quality stuff, right?
They're used to getting a shirt, screen printing it, which is interesting. And screen printing is great, but the thing is, the second you screen print something, it loses every bit of technical attribute there is. It clogs the pores of the fabric. It no longer wicks. They're not used to somebody coming in head to toe and saying, "I can do your socks and your warm-up suit and your shorts," and so that's it's for us the biggest challenge as a company, because we're not an inline product, is education.
Right.
Why does someone want or need what we actually have to offer? So that's the hard task, but beyond that, but there's definitely and think about the amount of runners.
I know the 51 million.
From a pure business standpoint, a cycling order is going to always be 40 times the quantity of a run order, because of all the multiple items that we can offer someone. But there are run organizations that have 50,000 active members. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah. When we were at the Interbike show, you were showing us a line of casual wear, right?
Correct.
That people could wear to work.
Correct.
Wear to work, and it would wick, and you could go to the office and not have to worry about ruining your good clothes, and just go right to your desk after toweling off a little bit. That was a launch for this year. How's that going?
Correct. It's going well. We're again, there wasn't a set plan. I won't take credit for this. It was a brainchild of Lewis's, actually. Yes. Originally, it's called Line 8, and it was started to fit into the commuter space. And I think they did such an amazing job with it that it actually is creating its own new classification, because it's way beyond. It's very highly styled and very highly functional.
It's regular clothes.
Regular clothes. Yeah. I have a lot of people wearing it that are not riding, and I personally ride it to work in it now, but as an active person with an active physique or an active body, there are certain attributes of it that make it so comfortable to wear on a daily basis. And it's very highly styled, and it also covers both men and women.
Yes.
And it's a very deep line with a lot of different SKUs, which I think is one of the things in that industry. Levi's makes some like amazing commuter apparel, but they make one great jacket, two great jeans, and this is really a full collection of clothing. So we're still trying to figure out the best direction to go with it, but the reception's been great.
Well, what I love about what you bring to the table is if it's cyclocross, it's triathlon, it's running, it's lacrosse, you're full throttle, 1,000%. You dive in with both feet and you immerse you don't tap dance in to something. You're like all in. Is that's just the way you do business?
I think it's our personalities. It's, we've been fortunate enough when we expand into these sports, we always try to find an expert in it. Yeah. Because that's crucial for us. Yes. It's crucial that when a runner comes to Champion System, that they understand that we're a running company. When a lacrosse player is going to come, they're going to understand that they're in a lacrosse atmosphere, and that it's been tested and built by an expert in that space. But we're also fortunate enough that most companies that do what we do and go into that space, that is their entire livelihood. Yes. So it's sink or swim, and they don't necessarily have the ability to do things correctly on like we do jump in full force, but with a plan to say it might take a year and a half, it might take 2 years for us. Some of these other sports, they're very price driven, and we don't want to go in and compete on a price basis. We want to again compete on a quality, customer service, and experience. So full force in, but in a smart way.
10 years in, what's the goals for the next 10?
World domination.
I think you already did that. You can check that one out.
You know what? I think it's interesting being a custom company that's also a brand. Yeah. We've got.
That's really true. Yeah.
We've gotten over the hurdle where we like to believe, and every order is important to us. I know people say that, but it's true. If you come in and spend $500 with our company and there's an issue and my staff can't handle it, one of the owners will speak to you. That's really important to us, and we want to bring that to all of these sports, and just keep replicating and growing and trying to be A1 in each industry that we go into.
Love it, Scott. Thanks so much for taking time.
It's my pleasure, Bob. It's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for having me.
No problem. We were brought to you by Endurance Sports Wire, by Race Place, by Babbitteville.com. Hold on, everyone. We will be right back.